woman in leadership, I have something for you. If you are a woman in leadership and you have ever felt as if there is a glass ceiling as it relates to your professional development, perhaps personal development, etc., we're going to talk about today. Today is a Q&A. It is Friday, and this is your opportunity to ask me any questions that you have as a leader as it relates to the glass ceiling. Now, in this video specifically, there's a couple things that I'm going to highlight. I am going to talk about the glass ceiling overall. What is it? Where does this term come from specifically? Why do we call it that? I do want to highlight how the glass ceiling, so to speak, impacts women in various industries based on some articles that I read today and some other information I've reviewed. And then I'll talk to you a bit about my personal journey as it relates to the glass ceiling and what are some things that you can do to break that glass ceiling. This is a big topic, and my channel specifically focuses in on advanced communication skills and strategies. Whether you are a woman in leadership in my audience that I provide executive coaching and consultation services to, or you may be a man in leadership, or you may be someone that is thinking about leadership and you're not sure if you want to go into that role just yet. My channel is here as a resource to you. I share a lot of universal information, even though I specialize in working with women, that will be applicable to you, whether you are a man in leadership or you're someone thinking about leadership. But I really want to focus on this glass ceiling concept today. And if you have any questions specifically, and you're watching the replay, you're always welcome to put them in the comment section and let's have this discussion. As I mentioned earlier, before I go into the glass ceiling topic, this channel will help you learn how to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. If you've ever found yourself in a leadership situation where you froze, you needed to think on your feet and you did not, you are giving presentations in front of a boardroom or etc., and you just don't know how to communicate and advocate for yourself, this by far is one of the best channels. It is the best channel on YouTube for you to watch because you will learn a lot of information here. I want to say thank you for the heart emojis. Hello and welcome, welcome. Hope you all are doing well today. Let me know, number one, most importantly, where are you joining from in the big, beautiful world today? And number two, would you like to have a Q&A about breaking the glass ceiling, how it impacts you? How can you do it? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Let me know what questions you have. I'm here to support you and do a Q&A for you today. I want to say hello to Jaden West, N8H5E. Hello, hope you're doing well today. Jaden says hello. We have Tessa Gareda 9361. Tessa, there's several people here on the live right now. Jaden, they're having some dialogue back and forth, and Jaden is in Washington. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Tessa is joining from America. Okay, what state are you joining from? I'm in the Sunshine State of Florida. And let's see, we have Robert Murphy 7920. Hello, excellence. Greetings from London. Well, hello, Robert. Good to see you, friend. Welcome, welcome. We're talking about breaking glass ceilings today, and I want to get some insight from you specifically as the attendees for the live today. Have you ever experienced the glass ceiling? Let's talk about that. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. And what are some things that you're thinking about doing to break the glass ceiling? Let's talk about it in the comments below. For those of you who are new to my channel, very briefly, this channel heavily focuses on advanced communication skills and strategies. If you are trying to be that person that can communicate confidently and concisely under pressure in those very high stakes, highly visible, challenging situations, this by far is the best channel on YouTube. I am confident saying that. The reason why is that there's a lot of other people that talk about more challenging ways to communicate, but the videos are highly edited, highly polished, and they're talking about theories, hypotheses, and leadership models. I'm not talking about any of that here on this channel. I'm sharing with you over 20 years worth of expertise of being in those very friendly and very contentious situations where I'm telling you what happens in real life, not what happens in somebody's textbook. So if you want to learn these skills, take a look at my live tab and look at a couple videos that talk about thinking on your feet, managing your emotions under pressure, your tone of voice, eye contact, body language. Any of those videos on my live tab will give you a solid foundation. If you have ever struggled with communicating under pressure, this is the best channel on YouTube. Here, I have over 1,000 videos on this channel, which is rare for many content creators. So you will gain a lot of information here. All right, let's go to the chat. So we have Alex Q6H9G. Hello, Alex. How you doing today? Jaden West says, I just subscribed. Well, welcome, Jaden. Hope you're doing well. And welcome to the group of amazing leaders that are able to communicate at a higher level than their peers. We have Elijah Weaver says, hello, Elijah. Robert Murphy says, can't say I have worked hard, sold my company. What exactly is a glass ceiling? Okay, Robert. So we're going to talk about that. And in your case specifically, because you've actually already sold your company, I'll tell you what it feels like sometimes in a glass ceiling, so to speak. So we'll go into that, Robert. Raj Kumar SE, welcome back, friend. Good to see you. Raj says, for the next 6 months, I want to focus on my communication skills. What should I do? We're going to go into that today for you, Raj. Good to see you again, friend. Jaden West says, my friend's about to join the chat. Okay, fantastic. We're going to have some good dialogue today. It is Friday here in the United States, so I have a lot more time to spend with you all. I'm here to really answer any questions you have as it relates to this topic. So let's go into what Robert mentioned initially. And that actually, Robert, you're reading my mind because this is the first aspect of the conversation we're having today. What is the glass ceiling? Are you all, if you're not familiar with the glass ceiling, we'll talk about it. If you've ever experienced a glass ceiling, put it in the comments below. Tessa says, so what are we talking about? We're talking about questions and answers as it relates to breaking the glass ceiling. Now, let me go into what that means. When you are in a professional role, whether you are a woman in leadership, in my direct target audience that provides executive coaching and consultation services too, or you're a man in leadership, or you're thinking about leadership, there sometimes comes to a place where you feel as if you are accomplishing different roles. You're elevating in your career, but there's just this level that you cannot reach. And so the term glass ceiling comes from that. And I know this is going to sound a little bit harsh, but when you think of the glass ceiling, a lot of times people think of it as being, let's say, birds in a specific aviation museum or something like that. They can't fly out. They do not have the freedom that they wish that they probably could have to fly around outside. They're in a glass container to prevent them from flying up. Now, how does that apply to us as professionals? When we are trying to accomplish this goal, thank you for the heart emojis, friends, and we're trying to accomplish that goal. Maybe you're trying to go to this particular management role, then you're trying to go to a director role, then you're trying to go to a senior VP, and then you're trying to go to a C-suite executive, and then you're trying to go into another role. You get to the point where you say, wow, I've accomplished this, I've accomplished that, and this and that, but I still don't feel free. I still don't feel like I have the freedom. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. I still don't feel like I have the freedom that I want to have to do what I want to do. So, for example, Robert, and this is something that I am going to lead into also. Robert started his own company and sold his company. And so the glass ceiling for Robert is probably a bit different than maybe some of you. Some of you may be working in a professional role, or you may be in different industries, and you found that you keep climbing, so to speak, the ladder, the corporate ladder, and you're finding yourself wondering, well, what's freedom? Like, what does it mean to really be free? So when you think about your career and your life and where you're going in your journey, what does freedom look like for you? Think about it. What does freedom look like for you? Now, I'll share with you a couple things that I learned here recently and a few things that happen a lot of times on the journey in terms of people breaking the glass ceiling. But before I go into that, let me go into the chat. Jaden West says Jaden's back. Okay, welcome back. Alex, hello, welcome, welcome again. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the glass ceiling. It's this point in time that you have in your professional career where you can look out, you see the windows, you see the clouds outside, you see the sun outside, you see everything, but for some reason you're still caught inside and you're not able to go out, meaning you're not able to really elevate and do the amazing things that you are called to do on this earth. Now, as I mentioned, my channel focuses on advanced communication skills and strategies, but today we're going into a bit more of a strategic direction because this topic of glass ceiling actually came up when we were having a conversation with Tom yesterday, the Rowan expert, as it relates to this topic specifically. Okay, Robert Murphy says you're talking about barriers, okay, unable to break barriers. Exactly, Robert, exactly. And those barriers can be in many aspects of our lives. So it could be something personal that you maybe are dealing with. It could be financial. It could be professional. I lean a bit more toward professional because that's really the nature of my channel. But it could be so many ways or so many barriers or things that are preventing you from feeling whatever that freedom is for you. Now, I'll share with you personally what happened to me and why I decided to transition into entrepreneurship. And Robert, if you have some insight to share, would much appreciate that because we have a mix of individuals that are entrepreneurs like yourself or business owners specifically. And then we have a mix of people who are W-2s or they're employees or they're still working and etc. So any insight you have to share to help them will be helpful. The videos on my channel are not only watched by the individuals that join live, but they are watched in the replay. And so on my channel specifically, we talked about this yesterday. I have over 1,000 videos on my channel, and the majority of YouTube channels do not have 1,000 videos on them. I'm in the minority. And what I'm trying to accomplish, what I want to accomplish, I want to have one of the biggest resource libraries on how to communicate in those very challenging, high stakes situations and deal with some of these real situations and barriers that we're trying to break that people can watch from years and years to come. And a lot of times when people are watching them, they learn from our dialogue and what we talk about in the lives. It's not just me sharing expertise all the time. It is my channel, it's my business, of course, but I'm really here to be able to provide any insight that I can to anybody because many of you are joining from other parts of the world. We may never ever get the chance to physically say hello and shake hands, but I want to be able to be a resource for you. All right, Robert says, enjoying listening. We all see things from a certain viewpoint. I get focused on my viewpoint. And I appreciate you mentioning that. And I appreciate you being here, Robert. Welcome again. And thank you for saying you enjoyed listening. And so a lot of times we do get focused depending on what's going on. And so it's good to listen to different dialogues to understand that, oh, okay, well, there's a different way of thinking about it and etc. Now, one of the things that I would say for me personally, where I started to notice a glass ceiling in my life was that professionally, I was advancing in my role. So many of you know that I'm a doctor. I've been practicing dentistry for a very, very long time now. And I've had a bit more of a unique type of life in my field specifically. Not only was I treating patients, but I had the opportunity to interact with congressional leaders at the highest level here in the United States. And I've been on the news, I've been on TV, I've done a lot of other things, but my roles specifically were always clinical and administrative at the same time. So I've always been wearing two hats. And so I started to learn a lot more about those very challenging situations, how to navigate difficult conversations, how to be that leader that can inspire and influence and persuade other people by the roles that I've been in. Now, I worked as a director. I worked specifically as a C-suite executive for a very long time. And when I reached the level of C-suite, for those of you who don't know, those are going to be your chief officers, chief executive officer, and etc. If you've been in those type of roles, those roles specifically are very much at the very top of the tier of a business. They're at the very top of it. And when I was in my role specifically, I found that there was a point where I felt as if I enjoyed what I was doing, but I didn't feel free. I had so much more to give than just managing a lot of people, a lot of buildings and a lot of fires. I can do all of that. I can deal with the pressure. I can deal with the hard conversation. I can deal with those contentious situations just like that now, which is why I share with you all how I manage things and how I help you all communicate when those situations come up. But there was a point where I felt as if there's more for me to do. And I just knew that there was something more I wanted to do. I was in the glass ceiling. I could look up outside and I see that there's freedom. The birds are flying outside and there's clouds outside, but I'm still stuck in this box. And that is the reason why I decided to go into entrepreneurship and start my business, Excite Excellence Incorporated, to be able to provide those next level, more advanced communication skills and strategies for people that need to learn how to be able to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. That's when I started to see the glass ceiling specifically for me. I had reached the highest level. I've been at the highest level. I know what it is to run a department. I know what life is like as a C-suite executive. But then you get to the point you say, well, what's next? What am I going to do that? Have I just been working myself to death just to chase a role as a C-suite? Some people have that mentality. And I've talked to my clients, and some of my clients think that also. But I want to encourage you all, and Robert can attest to this, everybody's not meant for business ownership. Okay, I will say that. However, there comes a point in time where you can chase the roles, but really, what are you on this earth? What are you called to do? It may be a little bit different than what you're thinking about doing right now. Okay, let me go back into this. Raj Kumar says, I have worked hard for someone for 15 plus years, and that is enough for me. Raj, I understand. I appreciate you mentioning that. I want to transition into entrepreneurship. So, Raj, let me go back to what you said before, because you mentioned for the next 6 months you want to focus on your communication skills. What should you do? And then we can definitely talk about transitioning into entrepreneurship. For those of you watching, this is a Q&A, so I'm really here to support you. We're talking about glass ceiling, we're talking about career advancement. My channel focuses heavily on advanced communication skills and strategies so you can communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. But today is Q&A. So if you have some questions, just as Raj mentioned, as Robert already asked a question, you're welcome to ask them specifically. I'm here to support you on your journey. Now, Raj, so if you're trying to focus on communication, which Raj, I believe you are subscribed to the channel because I know I've seen you many times, friend. So I think you probably are, or I hope that you're subscribed to the channel. When you think about focusing in on communication, if I could give you anything, Raj, this is what I would say if you're trying to work on your communication. There are typically, and I say there's a lot of aspects of communication that people just struggle with in general. It doesn't matter what country you're from, it doesn't matter where you live, how you're raised. There's some people that just we all struggle with these aspects of communication. Therefore, Raj, I would say focus on the three main areas of communication that people struggle with. Why do you focus on the three? And if you've watched my videos, you know exactly what I'm about to say. I would focus on these three areas because, Raj, if you can start to master these three areas by watching my content here on my channel and asking questions like you are right now, you will stand out from everybody else as a leader. Guarantee you will, because most people struggle with these three things. So, are you ready? The three aspects of communication, and I would say most people struggle with this. A lot of people struggle with other aspects of communication, but let's narrow it down to three to make it simple for Raj for the next 6 months. People struggle with worldwide, they struggle with eye contact. Eye contact is very awkward for people. They don't like doing it. It's a challenge. They struggle with silence in a conversation. Silence feels awkward. They don't know what to do and how the conversation shouldn't stop. And then they also struggle with their facial expressions. Therefore, Raj, if you can start focusing in on those three aspects, and I have a ton of videos here on my live tab that focus on eye contact, silence, and facial expressions, you will put yourself ahead of the game as it relates to everybody else. Now, why do I mention those three specifically? If you can master eye contact, you can control a conversation. And when you're in those very contentious situations where you have someone that might be debating you or challenging you or arguing with you and etc., your eye contact and your ability to make eye contact will cause you to be the person in control of the conversation. Now, I have an analogy that I share with you all on my channel that talks about how do you maintain eye contact? Because many people tell me, okay, I know, Dr. Jacinta, I need to be better with my eye contact. How do I do it? I share with you the exact same strategies I do with my clients. Look out for the cowboy analogy in any video where I talk about eye contact. The cowboy analogy will change your life. It will change your life, and you will learn how to master eye contact very quickly and start implementing it in your day to day. Now, as it relates to silence, silence is another superpower that you can have in a conversation. If you can be silent and be comfortable with that silence, it will make you appear as if the person that is in control of a conversation. I'm sharing with you ways that you can mitigate risk and you can get a conversation back in control. Silence is a very, very, very cute, very, very, very critical part of that. And then third and finally is your facial expressions. A lot of times we get very emotional, we get very animated, we get very frustrated, and it just is all over our face, all over our face. Now, when you become more of a advanced communicator, a public speaker like myself, and you're so much focused on how am I presenting myself to other people? Am I going to show this person that they are aggravating me? Or am I going to show that I'm frustrated by someone stabbing me in my back? Whatever the case may be that's happened to you, how you control your facial expressions is very, very important. This is what I work with my clients on, the women in leadership that I work with specifically to help them master these things. So if you need some support and you're thinking, you know what, I know I'm in a highly visible role, whether you're breaking your glass ceiling or you're still in the glass ceiling or still in the glass house, contact me for an executive strategy session at exciteexcellence.org. Okay, and so Raj also mentioned about transitioning into entrepreneurship. So I know Robert's still here, so maybe we can talk a little bit about that in a moment. Okay, Robert says eye contact is absolute. Many times I've met guys that can't look me in the eyes. Eye contact, good handshake, and being genuine. Robert, that is a very, very, very good insight. And I appreciate you mentioning that. And I just want to go into that a bit because eye contact is critical. It is so critical. You have to be able to master this. So, Raj, as I mentioned, start mastering those three, and it will start to put you in a good place. But eye contact, as you mentioned, Robert, is critical. And there's a certain amount of influence. We talked about influence last night quite a bit. There's a certain amount of influence that happens when you're able to engage with someone with eye contact. As I mentioned, most people, like Robert said, he's had conversation where he's met guys where they can't look him in the eyes. They just can't. Why? Because they don't know how to and they're not comfortable with it. This is why you subscribe to the channel because you will start being more comfortable with eye contact. And that good handshake and being genuine is something that you just simply cannot, you just can't fake. You just can't fake it. It's so true. You just cannot fake it because people do it all the time. And how many of you have met people that seem genuine, but when you start talking to them, you knew, you said, something's not right about this person. I have experienced that many times, and I know you probably have too. So I appreciate that, Robert. Cat 23rd, welcome, Cat. Good to see you, friend. Cat says, evening dark, hot heart. Sorry, I'm late. No problem, Cat. I'm glad that you are here today. We are talking about breaking the glass ceiling, but Cat, as you know, this is Q&A this evening. So ask me anything. Robert Murphy says, so true, no need to talk so much. Exactly. There's not a need to talk as much. And people, Robert, people we talk about it, we say it, but once you're in that conversation and it goes quiet, what happens? People start to get a little nervous. They start looking around. They start shrugging their shoulders and they start talking about random stuff. But if you can start learning how to master silence in a conversation, it will be a complete game changer for you. Not only the fact it helps to build your executive presence, it helps to showcase yourself as a leader, but it also empowers you to know that you can have a conversation with someone, whether it's a friendly conversation, a contentious conversation, and you are in control. And I think that's what I would want to encourage everyone that's watching my channel, subscribe to my channel. I'm teaching you how to be in control because a lot of times, especially for my target audience, we're in conversations where you're having discussions, you're being overlooked, you're being interrupted in meetings and etc. And you feel like you just lost it or you're caught off guard, right? And you feel like you've completely lost control of the conversation. And when you leave that conversation, that issue replays in your mind constantly. You think, I should have said this. Why didn't I say this? I can't believe I didn't defend myself. And then that starts to impact your confidence. And that in itself will start to put you behind and you start not thinking well of yourself. And then you don't advocate for yourself anymore, and etc. If you can do the reverse and be able to understand how important silence is, it will actually boost your confidence and it will definitely make you stand out compared to everybody else because like I said, most people are struggling with silence in the conversation. They don't like it because it's not comfortable, but that's why you subscribe to the channel. All right, so Cat 23rd says breaking the glass ceiling in leadership requires both individual strategy and systemic change. I definitely would agree with you all. Would agree with you on that on Cat. And we talked a little bit about it earlier about the glass ceiling itself. What does it mean specifically, and how it impacts us, not only professionally, and you see it mostly in the professional sense when people talk about the glass ceiling, but you also may have it personally. You may have it financially. You may have it in other ways. And so it's definitely something to keep in mind as we're moving forward. Now, Raj had a specific question about, or a comment specifically, that talked about transitioning into entrepreneurship. So Raj is at a point where Raj has been working for somebody for 15 years and Raj is done. Raj is done with it and wants to be able to do something different. So how can you transition into entrepreneurship? And Robert, if you have something to add, you're welcome to do so because you sold your company, so you've already been in that world. One of the things that I did when I was debating on what I want to do specifically about entrepreneurship, where I want to go, because for me, all this happened in 2020. So this is actually on Tuesday is 6 years of me having my business. So I'm doing a special promotion online. I haven't fully announced everything yet because I'm going to be doing that probably a little later after the live today. But I have 6 years of my business that I'm here. And there was a point in my journey where I was practicing as a dentist. I was a C-suite executive. I was at that glass ceiling. I was already at the glass ceiling. I was at the top of it, touching the glass ceiling. Okay. But I I had to figure out, okay, I know I'm not free. I know I'm not free. I don't feel free. What is going to make me feel free? Like, what are some things I need to do? And I'll tell you, Raj, it was very difficult for me to figure out what I wanted to do. And I took some time. I literally did some research because I wasn't sure, well, how can I use the skills I have to help me do something that I really enjoy doing? And so I took a lot of time. I looked up consulting, I looked up coaching, I looked up teaching, I looked up a lot of other things, and I narrowed it down to being a consultant because I do have a higher level of expertise in those very challenging situations. That's what I do. I can't I guess I can't say I love challenging situations because I've dealt with so many of them, but when you deal with so many things at once, you just become more proficient at it, I would say. And I decided I want to do some consulting because I knew I could help a lot of people with that. And I looked into becoming an executive coach. I read into that. I took a certification course for that. I completed my certification with the International Coaching Federation at that time. And then I started doing executive coaching. And you may just want to take some time to think about it, Raj, in terms of what specifically would you be happy at? I could sit here and literally talk to you all day long. I could, which is why I go live so much because I enjoy being with you all. I don't have a problem speaking impromptu on camera. I don't have a problem dealing with trolls. As you all know, we get trolls from time to time. And I don't mind people being silly sometimes. I can handle it. And that's why I'm here. So you have to find out what specifically is it, Raj, that you really like, that you really enjoy, that you could potentially monetize and turn into a business. That's the first way of entrepreneurship. But then second is if you're working for somebody and you're doing this 15 plus years of working with them, you absolutely you have to gain some momentum in your business. There's going to come a point in time, and Robert, I'm sure you can attest to this. You're going to be wearing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hats at the same time, especially when you're starting a business and you're working for somebody else. I've done that and it's hard. It's very, very hard depending on your role and your job. But you have to know that there's a point where you're just going to be stretched thin and you're going to have a lot of times where nothing's going to happen in your business and you're going to make $0, and it's going to be very discouraging and you're going to want to quit and you don't want to do it anymore. But you have to keep going. You have to keep going. That's the reason why if you find something that you enjoy doing or have some enjoyment in, it will help you on those days when things get really hard. Now, if you have any other questions as it relates to entrepreneurship, let me know. And Robert, if you have anything to add, let me know also. Okay, Cat 2030 says we has a question. Okay, Cat. What is the most effective accountability mechanisms you've seen companies implement to ensure leaders actually advance diverse talent, not just talk about it? A lot of it comes down to, I'll be honest with you, it comes down to the leader. It comes down to the leader of the organization. It all comes down to the leader of the organization. That's like hands down. I know that may not be the top accountability measure, but it comes down to the leader. And in terms of some of those measures and et cetera that I have seen to be really successful is having, if you have a board of directors, having a board of directors that is in the process of helping the business to grow and helping things to develop and being mindful of how they want to recruit people. And diverse talent could be, it could be various things. So it can be diverse talent in terms of their skill set, their backgrounds. It could be whatever it is that they bring to the organization. It could be so many things. And if you have a board of directors that actually cares about those type of in, diverse talents and people that can help the organization grow, then that will help you. But ultimately, even if you have a board, it comes really down to the leader. So a way to keep people accountable is to just be mindful of who is being hired and paying attention to that. If you have a conversation with human resources is the department I would say supposed to. Now, I'll be quite candid with you. I've worked in human resources departments that are really good, and I've worked in some that are really bad. But human resources should really ultimately be that accountability partner. They should be the individuals who are like different branches of government, like we have here in the United States, where you have your your executive branch and you have your legislative branch and all of that. There has to be checks. Okay, so for instance, if you have, thank you for heart emojis, if you have a leader that specifically is doing what they want to do, they're not hiring diverse talent. They're hiring their buddies. They're hiring their friends. Oh, I saw you at the coffee shop. You should come work for me, type of thing. You can do that, right? But if you are not hiring the right people to complete the task or the job at hand, okay, that may not go too far. Why do I say that? Because there has to be some checks. So when you think about accountability, it needs to come a lot of times from human resources because they are the ones that should have the closest finger to the pulse as to who are we hiring, why are we hiring them, and etc. And if you see that's not working with the human resources, that's when you start having conversation with board members to say, by the way, what is going on? Why are we not hiring people that have this certification or that certification, and kind of go from top down to get more diverse talent? Because a lot of times people will talk about it, but human resources is really the place to start. But it truly does begin with the leader. Robert says, keep going, find an angle that promotes you. Absolutely. And you do have to do that. You have to find out what's going to be the best option for you as an entrepreneur that will help you to grow. So Raj, I hope that gives you some insight and some things to think about as you're going through your journey. Kat says the mindset shift. Perhaps most importantly, don't buy into the limitation. The greatest way to shatter the glass ceiling is to refuse to feed the narrative that opportunities are inherently limited. Kat, I appreciate you mentioning that. And as you mentioned, that's definitely a mindset shift because sometimes, and I have someone, a dear person that I know that has that exact same mindset that Kat mentioned. Let me tell you why. You can have a hard job market. Like the job market right now is tough. Everything's expensive. All things are expensive. People are laying people off. Disney just laid about 1,000 people off. I think they're planning to do that. It's just a tough time right now. It's a really, really, really tough time right now. And what does that mean? People slow down on hiring, etc. But this person I know specifically has been looking for opportunities for over 2 years now. And the conversation I have all the time with this person is that the job market's bad, everything's bad, I can't find a job, etc. Now, there is a possibility some of that could be true, but this person is in a more of an administrative higher level type of role. But they have that mindset that things are limited, the opportunities are limited. And a lot of times people talk about manifestation and all these type of things. And one of the critical parts of manifesting things, and I'm not going into the spiritual side because that's not me, but I would say one of the things that people really focus in on is taking those limits off, as Kat mentioned. There has to come a point in time where you have to stop limiting yourself. Now, are there limits? In reality, yes. We're not living in at the end of the rainbow with the pot of gold. There are sometimes limits in terms of what we actually have. However, how we react to those limits and how we get through it and continue listening to what's being said to us or what we are telling ourselves truly can dictate where our opportunities will go. And as Kat mentioned, breaking the glass ceiling has a lot to do with stopping that narrative that you have within here. Because sometimes what we think about here is what we are. I'm very, very big on words in terms of what you say and being very high energy. For those of you who are new to me, you probably don't know that yet, but for those of you who've watched or been on my channel for a long time, then you know this is how I am. This is how I communicate every single day. This is just me. And I'm very, very cautious about saying words that are very, very overly negative or things that may be more argumentative, etc. If it's something that is a problem, it just is a problem. But be mindful of how you speak to yourself and what you say to other people. If you go and complain about, "Oh, this is messed up," or this is bad, this is horrible," sometimes it might be, but is it like that every day? Every single day? It probably is not. And so being mindful of what you say to yourself, even in those low moments, just like Robert was saying, you have to just keep going. Even in those hard times, what you say to yourself is extremely important. It will help you to move forward or it will completely set you back. So, Kat, once again, appreciate your insights as always, friends. Okay, Robert says, smart woman, interesting listening. Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate that so much. Appreciate you being here and stopping by to visit the channel today. So we talked about a lot of things so far. As I mentioned, this is a Q&A. Normally we're talking about a specific topic and etc. Raj is usually here. Kat is always here. And so we're talking about just Q&A today. So if you have any situations, any really challenging conversations that you have coming up, let's talk about it. I'm here to support you any way that I can. Ask me anything as it relates to those. Now, we talked a bit about the glass ceiling and breaking the glass ceiling and etc. I saw a couple articles specifically. I saw one that was kind of interesting to me. I saw one that was talking about the movie Anchorman, and it talked about glass ceilings and oftentimes what happens when women are in different situations where they may be paid less than their male counterparts and etc. So that's something I thought that was very interesting. I may do a video on that later, but just let me know what your thoughts are. But what I found interesting was that for Anchorman, the two people that were in Anchorman, Will Ferrell's one, Will Ferrell's hilarious, and then the other gentleman, I can't remember his name, but they actually gave some of their salaries to Christina Applegate because her salary was so low. Interesting. And so I remember people talking about glass ceiling and things like that as it relates to the entertainment industry specifically. But for our context of our conversation, breaking the glass ceiling is something that you definitely want to take a look at and really think about, what does freedom mean to you? Like, what does freedom really mean to you and how exactly can you get there? Okay, Kat says, how do you handle the exhaustion of being the only one in the room without burning out or becoming cynical? Well, that's a really great question, Kat, and I appreciate you mentioning that. So, how do you handle the exhaustion of being the only one in the room without burning out or becoming cynical? I've been in this situation, so you one of the things I would say that will help you is to make sure that you have pretty much, I want to say, bulletproofed yourself from nonsense, because you're going to be, if you are the only one, you're the only one in the room. A lot of times when people are just doing nonsense type of things or being really frustrated or being really just ridiculous, over time it just wears on you and you get really tired. But if you build up your stamina in terms of what's the most important thing that you need to talk about in this meeting, what's the most important aspect of this conversation that you need to let people know about specifically, and then also, how exactly are you going to communicate? It will help to shield yourself, because when you're in that situation, Kat, you just have to come into those meetings being highly focused, being almost more focused than everybody else. Why? Because if you're highly focused on what's the task at hand, what needs to be discussed, how we're going to resolve this issue, and etc., then when people start going around talking about other things, it doesn't bother you as much and doesn't make you become very cynical, because ultimately there has to be a bigger reason why you're doing this. And that comes down to the glass ceiling. A lot of times you want to be in a situation where there's something bigger that you're doing. And we talked about this, it may have been last week, when you're trying to balance working at a role and you like the job, but you don't love the job, and you're trying to change the job, and you're trying to do other things, but you still have to work at the job. So how do you balance where you still are present and you're still there, but then you're not giving 100%? Kat, I almost think that you mentioned this, but there's always a balance there, but you have to really build up your stamina and get your mind right when you go into those meetings, so that you know, this is what I'm focusing on. This is all I care about. I don't care what everybody else is talking about. And when the meeting is done, you leave. Because a lot of times, when what I've seen happen is that people will be at the end of the meeting, they'll start talking about random things and what they did over the weekend and all kinds of stuff that doesn't matter. If you get yourself out of those situations, it basically helps to get yourself out of those bad situations so that it doesn't burn you out. I've been in that case. And when I was transitioning from C suite, while I was C suite and developing my business, I was already hyper focused when I went into meetings, but it was at the whole nother level when I was working on my business. As soon as I was done, oh, we're finished. Okay, I'll see you all tomorrow. Get my bag and I'm walking out the door. That's literally what I would do. I would literally move quickly. And so that helped me not to become too burnt out in those situations. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. Okay, let me see. Stephen Donnelly, 3921. Hello, Stephen. Good to see you again, friend. Excuse me. Steven says, hello, you're a smart woman. We talked before. Yes, Steven, we did. Good to see you. Good to see you. All right. So Robert says that would be an interesting video, but I will say gender inequality isn't universal. Interesting. I'm from UK and we've had countless queens and female prime ministers. Honestly, I feel like it's attitude. Robert, I appreciate you mentioning that. I really, really do. And I would like to do a video on that. And that's very interesting because of course I'm based out of the US, and here it's a little bit different. And I appreciate you mentioning that it's not so much like that in the UK. Interesting. I saw an article earlier today too going into that also, and they're right. I'm going to take a screenshot of that, Robert, because I am going to do a video on that, and I'm gonna do some more research on that actually, so I can bring some facts. That would be more of a pre-recorded video more than likely, because that definitely is a good topic to have more depth. I saw an article today on Apple News, and it's in the entertainment industry specifically. And there was some article about Taraji Henson, she's an actress here, and then there's another lady, I believe she's on a Today Show. Her name is Hoda, or she was, and they were having a conversation about gender inequality in terms of the film industry specifically, and how, they're not being paid and etc. So it's interesting how the UK is a bit different. And you're right, UK has a lot of princes, a lot of queens and etc. So that's very interesting. I appreciate you, Robert, for being here and talking about that, because that gives me a different perspective that I personally didn't know about the UK. We live in our own countries, but sometimes we may not have the knowledge base or the understanding of other countries just because we're not having dialogues with people. So I'm glad you mentioned that because that's actually good to know. I didn't know it was like that in the UK in terms of just I knew that they have a lot of queens. Like I do know they have queens and female prime ministers. I did know that, but I didn't know gender inequality was so much of an issue. So appreciate you preaching that, friend. All right, Steven Donnelly says, hello. Robert says, you, for instance, are clearly competent, coherent, intelligent. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Robert. And I appreciate you so much for mentioning that insight and sharing about you selling your company. I appreciate you being here, friend. Stephen Donnelly says hello to Robert. Kat says, just hit my mind. Even at school, I think a month ago, we kind of talked about this. My teacher giving me ideas of how to be a leader in outside traditional roles like club projects and initiatives and focus on skills that transfer, not resume padding. Yes, absolutely. And a lot of times, and thank you for the heart emojis, friends. A lot of times people will think that they need to pad their resume. They just need to add stuff to the resume, add it. But it's very important for you to define what are those translatable skills. Communication automatically is this translatable skill. Managing people, managing projects, translatable skill. Some people will just try to add stuff just to add it on their resume to make it look good, but those are those situations where you just added a bunch of stuff on your resume that looks fantastic, but ultimately at the end of the day, it may be one of those situations where you're doing what? Like we talked about yesterday, Cap? You faking it till you make it. And I tell you all, I don't agree in fake it till you make it. Don't do fake it till you make it. Please don't do it. Especially if you're subscribed to my channel. Fake it till you make it will cause you not to make it. And when it comes out that you don't know what you're talking about or you're not proficient at it, it is going to be bad, very, very bad. And a lot of people will put a lot of stuff on their resume. I got this certification, I got that certification, I did this, I did that, when they may have done it just one time, but not enough to where they're actually proficient at it. And then when they go into their job interviews, and then they'll say, oh, I can do this and that. And then the hiring manager, because I've been one, will say, oh, you can do this? Great. So when we have you in your role and you say you can do this specific task, we're expecting you to do this specific task. And then when you don't, you say, wait a second. I thought you said you could do that. I've done this many times. I've had situations where I've interviewed people. These are all we're all adults. And I said, okay, if you have a problem with someone or something happens and there's maybe a bit of a conflict, how do you manage this situation? Every time they tell me, oh, I would go and talk to the person and talk to them about it and see how we can resolve it. Okay. And so when those situations happen, guess what happens? They don't do it. They come to me first. So it's just something to keep in mind. People will say they've done all these things, but in actuality, have they done them? Sometimes you just have to find out. You don't want to pad your resume. Stephen Donnelly says, I'm from Ireland. Okay, welcome, welcome, Stephen. Robert says, hey, Stephen, welcome, brother. And Stephen says, thanks, Rob. Awesome. I appreciate you all having that interaction and talking there. Okay, Kat says, insight the ceiling is often built by well meaning people who don't see their own bias. I would agree with that. Think about how the world is structured. People tell you to do what? Go to school, get good grades, get a job. That's what people tell you. But they don't tell you that going to school, which is nothing wrong with going to school. I went to school forever. Getting good grades is always helpful if you're trying to pass. But they don't tell you about the getting the job part. They don't tell you about what happens once you start working and when you start trading your time for money. They don't tell you about that part. They just tell you, by the way, you need to just go and get a job, right? Most of us have been told, go after you finish school, go get a job, go get a job. No one says, oh, you finish school, go start a business, go start a business. They don't tell you that because the business part of it is definitely a lot different than the job part. There's a lot more of a risk that comes into being a business owner, that's for sure. But when you are in that role as an employee, you're essentially trading your time for dollars. And when you're trying to build true wealth and true influence, and you're trying to really generate a life that is not dependent on you being on someone's clock, every single day for certain hours out of the day, then you get to a point where you start developing that freedom and you start breaking the glass ceiling. And a lot of times people just structure it that way. We've been told to do that for centuries, probably. I don't know for how long because I haven't been around for centuries, but we know this is a common statement that people say, go to school, get good grades, get a job. I heard that from my parents, get a job, get a job, get a job. But ultimately, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with getting a job. If you need that stable income, of course, you have to do what you have to do to take care of yourself, take care of your family, and take care of your loved ones. But just keep in mind, you are trading your time for dollars, and there is a better way, which is what Raj Kumar was talking about earlier in terms of transitioning into entrepreneurship. So, Kat, I appreciate you mentioning that insight. And a lot of times, these well meaning people will just say things that structure how we think, and it's transferred not only to them but it's transferred to their family and to their kids and to their kids and to their kids. And that is how our society works. We transfer information. Some of it may not be ideal and some of it may be great, but as you mentioned, they don't mean wrong. It's just that's the way they saw the world at that time. Kat says, what are the systemic barriers when breaking the glass ceiling? If we're talking about more so of the professional side, I would say the biggest barrier is the paycheck. I think that would probably be the biggest barrier on the professional side and the fear of the unknown. How many of you have ever felt afraid? I'll put both my hands up. We've all felt afraid, but the feeling of fear can truly impact you, and it can be one of the biggest barriers to breaking the glass ceiling. Now, when you are thinking about breaking the glass ceiling and you're wanting to go to that next level, whatever that level may be for you specifically, it can it can definitely feel a bit unsettling knowing that, okay, I've reached a point in my career where I'm working at different jobs and I keep seeing the same thing. I keep seeing office politics, I keep seeing drama, I keep seeing people misuse my time, misuse my expertise, and etc. And you say, well, I want to do something different, but I don't know how. Then people look into entrepreneurship, they look into companies, they look into all this type of things. But the part that is a barrier for them, Cat, is the fear of the unknown. People get used to having that paycheck. Okay, they get used to having that paycheck and living on a commission based type of income is a bit scary to people because there's a lot of things that can happen. You could miss out on your bills. You may not be able to pay your mortgage or your rent or your car note or basic things. It's just different. So you have to learn how to manage your money better. But ultimately, having some type of income while you're working your job will help you. But I have seen that glass ceiling is a fear is one of them. Fear is a big one. That's like if you're trying that's specifically if you're trying to transition out. Now let's say if you're in the middle and you're just trying to advance in your career and go to the next level and etc. What happens is still fear. People become very afraid. And you've heard, and you maybe have heard this. There's this fear of success. People say, how can you say that? Like, this makes no sense. How can you be afraid to be successful? People are afraid to be successful. Why? Because there is a fear there that they're like, wow, what if I really do what I'm supposed to be doing on this earth while I'm here? What if I really do it? And what if I truly try to reach the fullest of my potential as I can? What's going to happen? And people get afraid. They get afraid. So for instance, let's say if you are at that point, maybe you are in trying to break the glass ceiling, or maybe you see the glass ceiling, you say, well, it's a little too high for me right now. I can't break it yet. I still got to keep climbing up a little bit. Sometimes people don't progress into different roles and different positions because of fear. So if I said anything for you, Kat, fear is going to be the biggest barrier to breaking any glass ceiling whatsoever. Either fear of leaving and transitioning into entrepreneurship or being a business owner, or the fear of transitioning up to a different role, the fear of adding more employees to manage, the fear of being more visible, the fear of having the room watching you. It comes down to fear, and that's the reason why sometimes people don't want to break a glass ceiling. Okay, Kat has her hand raised up. Robert says, "So right, college doesn't always work out." No, college definitely doesn't always work out. And I am very, very curious to see what happens in the next 10, 15 years with colleges. I have children, as many of you know that subscribe to the channel. I have young kids, and I am just wondering how is this going to work? How is this going to work? Because when I talk to my kids now, they talk about, well, my oldest, she talks about, oh, going to college and things like that. She's not even close to college, but of course she sees it because she's older. I just tell her, "We'll see how things go." And I know that sounds kinda scary to say. You do need an education, but I am curious to see how the academic institutions are going to hold up in the next 15, 20 years. I'm just very, very curious to see how things what's gonna happen. There's always gonna be colleges and institutions for certain roles. There's some roles, there's no way around it. You have to learn. Like, for instance, if you're becoming a doctor like I did, there's no way. You can't just watch a YouTube video and become a doctor. It doesn't work like that. You can't get a Cracker Jack box and just pull it out and say, "Oh, by the way, I'm gonna be a doctor today." You can't do that. So there is a need for them, but I'm curious to see how the landscape is going to change as time goes on. I just was watching I look through the news a lot. And so many of you know I keep up with politics, I keep up with kind of what's going on. And I do that because whenever I'm in these conversations, I want to make sure I have my data and statistics ready. I just saw that here in Florida, one of the colleges, I believe, are taking sociology out of their program, out of their curriculum. And is there something wrong with that? I'm not the one to really speak on that, but I just see how education is changing quite a bit. A lot of people learning a lot of information on YouTube, and they are learning a lot to the point where they're making money and they're thinking to themselves, why am I going to go into so much debt? Why can't I just make money now? So that's a good point, Robert. Sometimes college doesn't work out, and there's a lot of people that have been very successful that just did not make it through college. They said they just couldn't do it. Everybody's different. And then you have people that are successful that make it through college. So it just works. It just depends. But I'm curious to see how things are going to go for the next 15, 20 years in the college setting. Kat says, I've seen recency bias where prep programs favor recent graduates, disadvantaging career changers or late bloomers. Yes, I would agree with you 100% Kat on that because the same thing happens in the employment world also. I cannot tell you how many programs that I have seen or even jobs that have seen that will automatically discredit people that are late bloomers or people that are changing careers. I think it's just generally speaking. I don't know how it is in the UK, Robert. I don't know if it's like that there because we only know what's going on specifically to that level of detail here in the States. But Kat, that's a good point. And I do want to say that that's definitely something to consider for sure as well. Kat says at Robert Murphy, don't say that. Okay, so Robert, just so you know, Kat's in college. Kat's in college right now, and she's working very, very hard in college. So that's the reason why Kat said that with a smiley face and the sweat emoji on there. Okay, Robert says they don't want to push to be 100% bang on. Okay. All right, Robert says, I've got three kids, six, four, and one. Oh, okay, awesome. It scares me thinking about how or what they inherit. That's a good point. And so, Robert, I'm with you there. I have three also. So you have three little ones too. Mine's are in the little range also. But congratulations on your little baby. You have a 1 year old. So I know you're busy. But yes, I when you think about it now and when you think about, you know, I don't know your age specifically, but when you think about how I can say for me in my childhood, I grew up watching G.I. Joe, X-Men, and and the Smurfs. I mean, I watched all kinds of like He-Man, sure, that's my age specifically. But I will say this, when you think about what the children are seeing now compared to what life was like back then, it is something you really think about, and it does cause you to be concerned. And I wonder, do our or did our parents feel the same way when we were growing up in terms of, oh wow, things are changing so quickly? I don't know. I do believe the generation, the time that we're in right now, it is very, very, very unique. I believe just as just a population. We are in one of the most amazing times in the history of the world. Things have changed so fast. So when you think about times here, like specifically in the US, where we had the Industrial Revolution and things just went skyrocket very, very careful, very, very quickly. You had JD Rockefeller with the oil, you had Andrew Carnegie with the buildings and the bridges, and who else was there? You had Vanderbilt with this actual steam with the trains and the locomotive at that time, and then you had Pierpont Morgan with the financial industry. I mean, things were just like massive changing. And so when you think about just a couple years ago, how has things changed? I mean, we came up from dial-up AOL on our phone. How many of you had dial-up? I did. I'm probably telling my age, but we had dial-up in our house where it would ring, 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 and, and ring, ring, ring to connect to the internet. And now things are wireless. We have a cloud. Things have just changed so much so fast. So you think about it, you say, wow, well, what's going to happen to our kids? Like, what are they going to do? My kids now, I mean, they can sit there and navigate a phone by themselves. I can say my other child right now, she has my phone. She has my personal phone right now. I have my business phone. And I give her my phone and she's just over there just scrolling and doing her thing. So it's just it is something to think about. We just kind of figure out, well, what's gonna happen later on? Okay, so Kat says, "Well, that was awkward. Well, my time will come." Understand. So it is a little bit different depending on where you are and etc. But these are the things that happen as we get older. You start to think back. Well, when I was in school, this was happening, but now this is happening. So it's something just to keep in mind. And yes, it's just part of life that's there. So we talked about the glass ceiling. We talked about breaking the glass ceiling. We've had a lot of great questions, really good insight. Appreciate Kat, Robert, Stephen coming back to say hello, and Raj Kumar had a couple really good insights. Also, trying to see who else was here. We had Jaden was here present, a few other people also. So I appreciate you all being here. So we talked about a lot so far, and oftentimes on the lives they may go in different directions, which we have a little bit, which there's nothing wrong with that because ultimately we're all humans at the end of the day, and we're just having a conversation about things that happen in life, as we age and how we figure things out, and we just go from there. All right, Robert says exactly. Maybe millennials overthink things, laugh out loud. Well, I think a lot of people overthink things. They do. Let's see. Kat says Greece royalty didn't attend this evening. No, I'm sure. I think I had this conversation, and I don't know, Kat, what time it is in Greece right now. But I know in the Netherlands, and I know in where else were they from? Someone was from the Netherlands, and someone was from I don't know if it's from Switzerland, but the time that I go live, it is literally 3 o'clock in the morning, their time. So I don't know what the time is in Greece, but Akitia, I'm sure he would be here if he was if he was here. But a lot of times it just depends on the hour. So for instance, like Robert's in London right now. I know Robert right now, if it's 8 our time here, 8 p.m., 8:21 p.m., it's probably at least in the morning time, your time. I'm assuming. I think so, because I've worked with some individuals in the UK before. And I believe it's probably early morning your time right now. So the time zone is definitely a big factor, which is why later this year, we talked about this. I'm going to host an event for my audience as a whole, and I am going to do it in the form of either a Zoom or something like that, where we can actually interact with each other visually because a lot of times we just communicate via chat, and I am going to be hosting that, but I will host it in different at different times in different time zones so that I'm able to capture as many people as I can. That's something I definitely want to do this year. This is my 6th year of business, and you all have been so supportive, and I appreciate you so much. And I enjoy spending time with you all. And I want to make sure that I'm able to at least connect with you. I don't know what I'm going to do specifically for the theme of the event, but it's going to be something fun where we have a good dialogue, talk about some high stakes situation we've been in or something like that. So if you have some ideas, let me know. But this is something that I will post on my communities page. And when it starts to become closer to that time, I'll let you all know. It will be something because it is going to be a massive event. I have about 846 subscribers right now, so we're getting close to 1,000 very soon, which is a tremendous milestone on any YouTube content creator's journey. But with having that many people, it's something I have to plan for months, and I have to basically announce it for at least a good month or two, probably maybe 2 months, where I can get people to join, just because we're in different parts of the world. So Cat 23rd says, okay, Robert said, yep. And Cat also said, "Oh, oh, London, nice. Absolutely. I've never been to London. I've just only seen pictures and it looks like an amazing place. So I'm sure it's great there." So we've talked about a lot of information so far. I'm here to help you any way that I can. Friday nights, I typically do Q&A, so I have a lot more time to spend with you all to answer any questions that you may have specifically that may help you on your journey. Robert says it is 1:23 a.m. So it is very, very early in the UK right now. So I appreciate you, Robert, for being here and being here so early in the morning. I appreciate you being there. We talked about a lot so far. If there's any other topics you want to talk more about, I'm here to help you any way that I can. Anything that comes up for you. We have a lot of good insight that, or great questions, I would say rather, that are coming up in the upcoming weeks or so when we go live. Kat, you mentioned a lot of great insights, and we talked about influence a bit. And there's a lot of other things that you mentioned. Also, I took screenshots of those. So just know that if you have a topic, if you're watching any of my live videos and you see something that you really like and you say, "Oh, I know I had a situation where this happened, or this is something else I want to talk about. I want to learn more about it." I will do a video just for you and give you a shout out in the video and talk about it specifically as it relates to this situation. Okay, Kat says, "What is meant by the invisible curriculum?" Invisible curriculum. I would say that term specifically, I have not heard invisible curriculum, but I don't know if that, I would say I'm not sure if that's referring to being online or etc. I don't know. I have to look more into that topic specifically, Kat. Robert said, "You should come to London, set up a meeting." Absolutely. I think that's something I want to do at some point in time. I know that you're in London now, so I know that. And I'll take a screenshot just so I have an idea. But I do want to be able to travel to different places. I've never been to London. I'm sure it's a very interesting place to be at. I just see what I see on TV, and I'm sure vice versa is here in the States. It's just different. It's just very, very different. In terms of the weather, I think the weather is different there, and there's just a lot of things that are different, but there's a lot of things that are the same, just because our countries are English speaking countries. I mean, this is how we all started and all were founded and all those things. But yeah, we talked about a lot. I have my ebook that I'm still working on, the High Stakes Communication ebook. It is going to be just a few, it's not going to be a long ebook. I'll go into a lot more detail when I write my book a bit later this year, but it will have a high stakes communication assessment in it. And so when you take the assessment inside the ebook, you'll have the ability to look and see how do you respond to certain high stakes scenarios and determine, do you need some help right now, or is this something you might want to try to work on at some point in the future. So it'll be a great resource to you. As I mentioned, I'm 6 years in business right now. There's a lot of promotions I'm going to be announcing here within the next couple days, because on the 21st it will be 6 years for me in my business, and breaking that glass ceiling is one of the reasons why I decided to start my business, because I knew that there was only but so far I was going to go in corporate America, so to speak. And I just decided that I wanted to do something a bit different, something that I was actually very passionate about, and that I could impact more people, interact with more people, just like you all. Okay, Kat says 6 years celebration. Thank you so much, Kat. I appreciate that. It's been a wonderful 6 years and it's been a lot of fun. This past year, things have picked up quite a bit, only because I've been live so much. And I didn't realize that I've been live so much until I was contacted by YouTube to be on their live streamer research panel for the next year. For this year, it should be wrapping up in May. I have something else I'm going to be working on with them, but it's fun. I mean, this is fun, and if you've ever thought about entrepreneurship or having a business and etc., it's a lot of fun. It can be good, it can be challenging. Robert, I'm sure as you know, selling your company, there's good days in business and there's not so good days in business too, which we all just deal with. Stephen Dolan says, "Have a blessed night, love." Okay, well, have a good night, and I appreciate you being here today. If you have anything that comes up, feel free to let me know. Next week, we'll dive into a couple of topics that you all mentioned that you want to learn more about. And I'm going to be focusing a bit more heavily on communicating in very, very, very challenging situations. One of the things, or one of the topics that I've been asked about multiple times by a lot of my clients is, what do you do when someone interrupts you when you are speaking? I've done a couple of videos on that specifically, and I still am asked questions about that. A lot of it comes down to the fear of not knowing what to say. That's why in my high stakes communication intensive, where I actually practice drills with my clients to help them start thinking quicker and faster under pressure. That's why those drills help. But I'm going to do some more videos on that just so I can make sure everybody at least has something to work with that you can start implementing in your conversations every day. Okay, Robert says you've got some interesting things to say. Absolutely should. Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you stopping by today. Kat says, I nearly said glad to be part of the 6-year journey, but I remembered I joined recently. Well, you're still part of the journey, Kat. You've been with me enough to be equivocate to that because you've been on many of my lives. So I appreciate you being here so much. And always value you giving some really great insights and a lot of things for us to consider. And as I mentioned, a lot of people watch the videos on the replay. And I do want to be that resource hub for people when they're in those challenging situations and how to communicate and etc. So that when someone interrupts them, they're speaking to a group of people or they're feeling like they have to have a difficult conversation. I want them to say, okay, I went and saw a video on that. I'm ready to do it. There's been a couple of times here on the channel where people have used some of the information I've shared so far and they were able to get promotions in their roles. For instance, Robert, not Robert Murphy, but there's another Robert on here, Robert Murphy, that joined that was able to get a promotion in his role by using some of the information that I shared on my channel to help him be able to communicate in that way. There's a lot of different success stories that have came up live. So I want you all to be able to, I'll give you anything that I can that will help you to be successful so that you are not worried about speaking under pressure and you're able to handle it very easily and be able to accomplish those goals, earn that income that you're looking for. Okay, Cat has the monkey and the eyes covered up. Thank you for that. And then Cat says, appreciate it with the praying hands in the heart. Well, I appreciate you too, Cat, so much. So I will be back live next week. So for those of you new to me, I go live a lot. As I mentioned, I have over 1,000 videos on my YouTube channel, a combination of my lives, shorts, and pre-recorded videos, which are older, but I'm working on making some new pre-recorded videos and some content that you all will enjoy. I typically go live Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday in the morning, in the evening, around about this time. And on Wednesdays, I go live in the evening. Now, the schedule may change here very soon. It still will be the morning and the evening, but the timing in the morning might be a little bit earlier, possibly. We'll see how things go. But I appreciate you all so much for being here and good to see you, Robert Murphy. Hope you come back to the channel again. Kat, I'm always glad to see you, friend. And if you have anything that comes up for you, any questions, any challenging situations, any hard discussions you need to have, I am here for you. Let me know. There's no situation, no conversation that's too hard for me. I can't say I've done everything because I have not done everything, but I can pretty much figure out how to say something if it's a hard conversation for the most part. So I appreciate you all and I appreciate the heart emojis. And let me know how I can support you with what other content you want to see on the channel. And I will see you all in the next live. I hope you have an absolutely amazing weekend and I'll see you all next Tuesday. Bye for now.